After spending almost $2,000 on a PC setup, the last thing that you want to hear is what game your PC can't run. That's like owning a Dodge Hellcat and having a Nissan Altima driver tell you that they can beat you in a race. Like, see me in the streets, I would destroy you. But as these games get more graphically intense and more graphically expensive, the requirements to run these games on a computer will grow as well. The days of a recommended 16 gigabytes of RAM and low-tier graphics cards with only 6 gigabytes of VRAM are reaching their impending end. It leads to the fact that new games like the upcoming release Forspoken seem to not let you get away with lower grade PC specs all that much. Forspoken is a single-player game developed by Luminous Productions and published by Square Enix that will see a release for PS5 and PC just next week on January 24th. This game's been hyped up for some months now, and fans who are even a little too excited have done the honors of leaking a lot of the gameplay for the past few weeks, so it's not a mystery as to what we'll get out of the game. But something that was recently officially shared by the game's devs was the much needed PC system requirements, which allows players to know the chances of their potato system exploding while playing. And the fans have gave nothing short of an outcry to what the game recommends even for just a minimal experience. First off, regarding OS, anything older than Windows 10 is completely out of the window, which isn't really that bad. I mean, even the Lenovo laptops nowadays come with Windows 10s installed out of the box, but there are a few number of people who just can't let go of the past and still use these older operating systems to this day. However, most are hackers and people who exploit the Windows data frame, so I'm sure they'll find a workaround. But what really grinded people's gears from this list was the graphics and memories card minimum. People were upset to see what you needed just to get a minimum experience out of the game. As for graphics, you need a GTX 1060 with 6 gigabytes of VRAM, and for memory you need at least 16 gigabytes. Which, doesn't sound that bad on the surface. But that's only before you hear that it will only result in an output of 720p at 30 FPS. So you'll literally be playing a PS3 game simulator, which is funny to think about. But as a person who recently upgraded my PC from a GTX 1050 only a few months ago, I know for a fact that there's an audience of people with the worst of the worst graphics cards, and I feel for those guys, man. I hope that they can save up for a new card in time to play, all the new games that they want. As far as the recommended tab of specs for the game, people were once again confused at the fact that the game calls for 24 gigs of RAM, something that's almost unprecedented in most of the new releases today. Now, if you remember, I made a video a few weeks ago on how Returnal, a PS5 exclusive turned PC game, had a recommendation of 24 gigabytes as well, which made people upset. But now we have another PlayStation release with a seemingly obscure amount of RAM required to enjoy the best out of the game. So this makes people think that it's console games ported to PC that makes these games have crazy requirements, which is something that I could see be partially true. PC and game development are two completely different playing fields, so something in their production that causes the game to be more intense on PC isn't that hard to believe. But overall, in my opinion, I think that this whole situation is not anything to be upset over, like really. Like with the game Returnal, I think that if you have a decent GPU and CPU and at least 16 gigabytes of RAM, you'll be just fine at 1080p settings, and that the 24 gigabytes of RAM is just a precautionary measure to make sure that you have even more than needed. But even if it is more of a requirement, RAM is arguably the most cheapest and easiest PC part to upgrade. Imagine if they told you to reapply the thermal paste on your PC. Now that's worth rioting over because that's extra as shit. Games are evolving with our systems, so it shouldn't be too much of a surprise to see that games have a little more requirement than the last game. However, I can see why big leaps in requirements like this much RAM could concern gamers, especially when they don't have that much. But again, we're living in new times, which requires sometimes for new hardware. So what do you guys think about Forspoken's PC requirements, man? Feel free to leave a comment down below, and as always, leave a like on the video, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.